Welcome back, everybody.
Welcome back.
Back on the gravel.
Yes, sir. You're back after a long morning, a interesting morning, a not
surprising morning.
dissatisfying morning, I would say.
Now we're here. We're in civil twilight right now, recording this episode on the gravel. Good to go.
What's a civil twilight?
What's a civil twilight? It's a period of the day when the sun is 6 degrees below the horizon.
Wow. So smart.
Those who are very, very into their astronomy and weather and all that kind of stuff know exactly what I'm talking about.
I bet. I don't. I have no idea what you're talking about, genuinely, but that's okay.
I had to throw civil twilight in there once this week.
Moving on to the first piece of news that we actually have. It's going to be what Lewis said to the media last week at Hungary, between what the collision between him and Max, obviously, stating that he doesn't feel any hostility, but of course, from his side, that there always will be. Yeah, he's Dutch, dude.
And of course, yeah, that's in relation to Max. Max always races Lewis harder than anybody else, and I feel like, especially now, since they're not in the same car anymore, it's kind of pointless, I guess. I don't know. And then when I say in the same car, I mean, fighting for like the same positions every single week. But what happened last week was so unbelievably aggressive and unnecessary, which is kind of a classic sentiment that I feel about Max every single time he attacks Lewis. But yeah, Max is always going to be pissy. That's just how he is, but he gets over it like we all do. He's still a good guy.
These are facts, dude.
No printer.
Last 6 races have been very different story via points compared to the first 6 races of the year. Mainly just looking at the top 4 in this situation in the last 6 races, 2.5 months. We have McLaren at 184, Mercedes at 162, Red Bull Racing at 121, and Ferrari 110. This is before Spa, so even all of those points are now old numbers, I guess. But
yeah, even more for Mercedes.
Yes. I mean, they would have had
almost
40.
Almost 40.
Yeah, they would have almost 40 points added to their total, but
we all know how that went.
We'll get to it later. Is this the point spread that you were expecting for the first part of the season?
Absolutely not. With Max Verstappen taking the first 7 races, taking pole position in every single race, and then winning all but 2 of them, no, I didn't expect this at all. But what's kind of crazy? And of course, we're going to bring this man up like we do all the time. But isn't it funny how once like Adrian Newey is like confirmed leaving Red Bull, that now Red Bull is on this like performance slump?
Mm-hmm.
It's so interesting.
I mean, they did say that, or I mean, I don't know if Newey said it or someone said it, but he was talking about how he was suggesting changes for the Red Bull, and some of the other people at Red Bull Racing were not really a big fan of those changes and kind of went their way.
I was going to say blocked him out.
Kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, but now we see how that is really working out. So I don't know. Take your pick. But
I don't know. The Red Bull looked the best in qualifying trim this weekend, though.
It did. But qualifying in race is not always the same thing, as we know. I genuinely think that this car is now the second or third best, depending on who you ask. I
mean, dude, Mercedes have won 3 of the 4
last
previous races.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where you're saying where it's like they can make an argument for second best car. I could still argue McLaren's the best car just out of consistency.
Yeah.
But it's weird.
But I think what's very interesting to me about this whole situation of like the top 4 teams kind of trading off who's had the best car this year. I mean, I don't really count Ferrari. Leclerc only won in Monaco because he took pole position, and that's a qualifying car. But it's very interesting to see that you could argue since China, McLaren has had the best car on the grid, or consistently the best car on the grid. And they've only taken 2 wins since China. And you have Mercedes now, who have been in the mix for only a couple races, and they've come in and won 3 of those 4 races. It very much worries me to just the entire team dynamic at McLaren, as to why they're struggling so much to convert when they have better chances every single week than Mercedes. Like, I feel like Mercedes is taking every single possible opportunity. And, I'm just hearing that McLaren still kind of thinks they're underdogs in the sense of, they've been so mid for so long. And now that they're coming back, I guess they're giving themselves too many excuses, I guess, to not perform. Like, it kind of gives off 2022 Ferrari vibes, but, the Ferrari stuff was a lot more meme-worthy, I guess. And this is
like a weird struggle.
This is just consistent underperformance from McLaren, where with Ferrari, it was just bottle job after mechanical failure every single weekend. So, it's just very interesting to see how Mercedes is able to seize those opportunities immediately, and McLaren has been working on them for nearly 2/3 of the season now.
I don't know. We still have half a season left too, which is very, very fun to think about, that this is only going to get even worse over time. But
yeah,
something that we also missed last week was the fact that Yuki had a giant crash during Q2, staggering 68 Gs, which is one more than
Romain Grosjean's in 2020,
which
is
is
incredible.
Yeah, I mean, if you know that crash, you can scale it to this one then.
Or like
pretty easily.
if you know Max Verstappen's crash in Silverstone in 2021, that was 52 Gs, and that was crazy. Like, he just got speared into a wall, from another car. And I think it's the fact that Yuki actually caught air and flew into the wall, instead of kind of just sliding through a gravel trap or something like that. He had nothing to slow him down.
Yeah. Only the air itself.
Yeah. And the air resistance on a Formula One car going 200 miles an hour in the air. Yeah, I don't know about that, dude.
Yeah. It's crazy. But what we did miss was that Alonso got really mad at the stewards because of what they did after the crash. They sent him to Parc Fermé, and where they sent him was where an APX car was filming for the new F1 movie coming out. They realized their mistake as he was trying to exit the car and had to send him back to the pit lane to go through Parc Fermé again, which, during qualifying, you're on a time limit, and you could tell he was really upset because, they're not in a great car. Q2 is a big time for them.
Yeah.
That is their make or break moment. But
I don't know. I also just, why is all of this APX stuff cluttering the pit lane so much?
Well, I saw something saying that people are taking this super not seriously.
In what sense do you mean?
Just like
filmmakers,
the sport.
Or not?
No, like the sport itself, where.
So filmmakers are not taking the sport as seriously as they should be.
No, I'm saying like even the workers and like the people putting on the events aren't respecting the sport as much as like. It's like, dude, if you come to America and you go to a Wrigley game, or like a Cubs game at Wrigley or a Bears game at Soldier Field, like there's a whole kind of setup to it where you were like, oh, okay, like everyone's here. Maybe they all love the team, but at the same time, they're here for a job, and they're going to make sure that job is done well with minimal errors.
I feel like that's how F1's been for such a long time.
But like stuff like this kind of divots that, I want to say.
Dude, another one that like really comes out to me was with Esteban last year, like trying to pit on the final lap at Baku, and then you had all the people just running, like all the media personnel just running around the pit lane. I don't know why that stuff happens so much.
It partially, I think it's because people that working are doing these events are huge fans, and there's nothing wrong with that. I would say just the fact that like you have to have these standards, everyone has to be on the same page. it's hard to run an event that's this big when you have, quarter to 500,000 people coming every single weekend to view this event. It's just this, we shouldn't have these things happen. We shouldn't have to have a driver be complaining about losing, maybe 3 minutes, but in qualifying, that 3 minutes is a huge amount of time. That's 2 laps almost.
That's like over a third of your qualifying time as well.
So genuinely, I find it reasonably to be on his side and to understand where he's coming from.
Yeah.
But I just want to see change, and I don't know if there's going to be change. That's where this point kind of goes to.
No, I agree with you though. It's shocking, especially with the sport growing so much. I feel like you really need to set these precedents and rule sets out so stuff like this doesn't happen.
Are you ready for the most stupid storyline?
Oh yeah, no, I've been laughing my
yeah.
butt off about this all week.
It's just been hitting deep with every gamer that we know. Because everyone has heard that Max and his sim racing has been in the news recently, and not for the greatest reasons. But before the race last week, one of Max's teammates for sim racing team Redline dropped out at the last minute, requiring the 3-time world champion to fill in a late stint that ended around 3 a.m. Now, this was Saturday night into Sunday morning.
Into Sunday.
Now, Crofty, I understand that you don't get the idea of someone staying up late, but Max is regular and probably the most professional at this kind of mentality.
I mean, Crofty made like 5 or 6 comments on air.
It wasn't just one. It was like again and again and again and again. And it was so frustrating to keep listening to. I know you feel that.
No, it's extremely aggravating. But like just the media was dogging on him so hard. To the point where like people were calling for Max to be given like a curfew for when he has to go to bed and stuff. And it's like, here's the thing. It's so annoying because like every single time Max would make like a tiny little mistake last week, Crofty would immediately like chalk it down to him sim racing last night. But it's like, Max has been, so consistent and so good, and lives and breathes racing. I think he knows how to regulate his sleep schedule to perform to the level that he needs to.
Exactly. And it's like even Peter Windsor, former Formula One driver, try saying that 10 times fast, on his most recent episode of his show, came out and said that Max should be able to do what he wants to do during his free time.
I agree.
Max has said that he doesn't tell the other team like members how to spend their free time or what they can and can't do. Max also did this exact same thing at Imola and won not only the 24-hour of Nürburgring, virtual 24-hour Nürburgring, but also Imola. So it doesn't matter. Like, no one was complaining about it then. Why are we making noise about it now? Helmet even said in the future that he is going to still be allowed to do so, to race and to sim on weekends, but he won't do it as late into the future. Now, that doesn't mean that he's going to not stop sim racing or doing it at late times because he loves to. I don't believe it.
This guy's like over 10K I rating, bro. He is a monster on the sim.
You don't understand. You don't understand how good he is on the sticks.
Yeah, just waiting for the day I match up with him in an iRacing lobby.
I mean, if it really, really affects his abilities, then yes, you can tell him to stop. But it's not. So
I don't know.
I'll let you take this next one.
Oh, my apologies. I was looking at I was just going over Peter Windsor and stuff. But yeah, there was a lot of news this week. Sorry, every time I see his name, I just laugh. With my favorite former team principal, Mattia Binotto Spinalla, as he is joining Audi to lead their F1 project. I think this is definitely a win for them. I mean, obviously, there's a bit of nerves that go with signing Mattia Binotto into such a necessary and big role. But you had Andreas Seidel, who's the CEO of Kick Sauber, and Oliver Hoffman, who's a former chairman of the board. They both left the project. So I know like a lot of people have very mixed feelings about it, but I'm kind of optimistic for what, Mattia can probably come in and do. But, a lot of people are saying that the timing of this change is super dramatic and causing an intense amount of PR damage. I don't really think it is.
That's what I was saying, dude. Like I saw that PR damage take coming out, and it's like, okay. Have you ever seen a head coaching change in American football or basketball? Like,
Yeah,
those are PR damaging moves.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, it's not the end of the world. People move around in these positions all the time, and he has a lot of experience in this kind of role of growth to what structure a team should be like, I would say.
I was going to say it, but I'm also very interested to see if, he really does like step into a team principal role again. I would love to see him as a team principal of another team again, because I don't think he was terrible. I just think he caught a lot of slack for what was going on with Ferrari, because technically he is the head and the personality, I guess, in the media of everything that's going on. But I guess bad in the media and absolutely damaging for another team is Alpine. Now, I know we mentioned this a little while ago, but we are like in the forefront now of Alpine completely ditching their engine program for F1 and switching over to being a Mercedes-powered team. And this is kind of happening right now because with Aston Martin switching over to Honda engines for 2026, Toto Wolff came out saying that he's willing to come out and supply another team, another customer team, and Alpine just has so little faith in what they are building and what they are pushing towards right now that taking on a Mercedes engine is probably going to be their best decision. And I kind of respect it. Like, I think it is really stupid to be this kind of manufacturer and then ditch your entire engine project like that. I mean, there will be no Renault engines on the grid anymore, but it saves them a lot of money
Exactly.
for R&D and that kind of stuff.
I think too, it's like the Renault engine is a very famed engine. Like everyone knows the clip of Alonso pushing the button of the V12 engine at the time.
Might have been a V10.
Might have been okay, but there's amazing engines historically, and now you're coming out of being like the soul of that team and the teams that have bared the name before it. But I don't know. I mean,
and it is just the F1 side of their engine development.
It is, but to counter that, it's like this is the thing that makes you French. In a way. So like it's like if Audi was like, "Nah, we're going to take Toyota engines instead." It's like, okay, like then you're not fully a German team anymore,
I agree. I would love to get to a point where McLaren manufactures their own engines.
They should, dude.
I mean, just with how big they are and how much history and pedigree they have in the sport, I'm actually surprised.
I think it's a money thing too.
It totally is. Again, they save a lot of money, and Mercedes consistently develops a very good engine. But yeah, so just, I don't know, seeing them switch over to a Mercedes-powered car is going to be really interesting.
Too bad the French team sucked this week because their liveries were sick.
Oh, dude, okay, it reminded me of the Star Wars livery that Red Bull had at the, if I remember correctly, it's like the 2006 or 2005 Monaco GP.
I know it was David Coulthard driving for that.
Yeah. It was so cool to have like a movie-themed livery, and of course with Ryan Reynolds' influence on Alpine just being one of their biggest shareholders. To have a livery like that is super cool. It was kind of confusing to me why it was at Belgium. And I get that, the Deadpool Wolverine movie did just come out this week, but You know what it looked like? It really gave off the Alfa Romeo from literally last year.
That's what
exactly
people were
what it looked
saying,
like.
was that it was just a Alfa Romeo replacement.
But it was gorgeous.
It did look really good.
It's a better livery than they've been running all year.
was
It's
really
also
balanced.
not hard to top the livery that they've been running all year.
They should just take the kind of style that had on this livery, but change the red to blue. I think that would be clean.
But like even like the, Wolverine claws going through the paint was just so cool. It was very, very well done. We'll see if that translates into the box office. But
some breaking news that we got this week from the FIA, all before Tuesday, mind you, was that the FIA decided that they're not going to be changing the point system like we potentially talked about, a few months ago. But they have also come out with a bunch more stuff about the regulations for 2025.
I will say really quickly, I definitely do agree with them not changing the point system currently.
Yes.
Currently, with 20 cars on the grid, top half getting points, perfectly fine. I think if we do get to a point where there's 24 cars on the grid, doing what we talked about with dropping it all the way down to P12 maybe makes a bit of sense. But I actually, for once, agree with the FIA here. I don't think there needed to be any change.
I think it's cool. I mean,
yeah,
genuinely, when it was 6 weeks or 6 races ago, when half the teams didn't really have points, yeah, that's an issue. Now it's pretty competitive to the sense that there's no need to change the system that's quote unquote working.
I was going to say, I feel like just at the beginning of the season, there's so much development that has to happen as well. I feel like you see the least amount of change at the beginning of the season, and then it always, ramps up at the midpoint and has its beautiful conclusion at the end of the season. So, I mean, I was worried about Alpine for a while, but yeah, I to your point earlier, did I see like the point spread over the past 6 races being what it is now? No. Like this is way crazier than I thought, but I did expect to see all the teams score points at some point. I mean, Sauber still hasn't, but that's bad.
One day. I'm rooting for Bottas.
Or day one.
Bottas. But to continue what we were saying, minimum weight of driver has been increased from 80 kilograms to 85 kilograms.
And that was specifically, they chalked it down to like driver well-being. It's too stringent on them to
we like that.
Have to stay that slim.
We like that. 2026 preseason testing will be 9 days across 3 events, which I think that's kind of cool.
I love that.
Updated 2026 regulations will be presented to the World Motorsport Council on October 17th. So that's probably the next big day that we will hear more about the regulation changes.
Mm-hmm.
The last thing about this is the quote-unquote controversial aspect of this, where maternity and paternity leave, sick leave, and team entertainment is still excluded from the cost cap. Now, the first two, crazy to be excluded. If someone's working with the team for, 8 months out of the year and then gets sick or has a child, for God's sake, they should be able to be paid by the team. And that should be included by, the FIA in what would be.
No, I think this
Wait, am I just reading this wrong?
You're reading it completely wrong. Maternity and paternity leave and sick leave do not affect the cost cap.
Oh, yeah. That's
a good thing.
That is a good thing. Team entertainment.
That one's
that's
a
the
bit
one.
iffy.
That's the one that we are all like, no, because what even does that mean?
Team food.
That's
you
not
already
food.
know it's that catering bill again, dude. We're getting every excuse for that.
Speaking of which, I found the F1, the Red Bull's head chef. So we're gonna try to reach out for him for it. Saw it and I was like,
how's that cost cap taste?
Caviar and everything, huh?
Caviar and P1 in the championship.
To continue off the news from the current week, Max, couldn't stay out of the news.
He's never.
being he's always. I mean, he's the star boy. It makes sense. But he was given a 10-place penalty in Belgium for using a new ICE. He came back and won the last 3 years, so I was predicting it to happen again, and it almost.
And I called
did.
you crazy.
You did, but out of all people doing it, I think.
Oh no! I was a bit. Dude, when I was watching qualifying, I was actually worried that he was just going to storm through and win the race. But even crazier than Max's 10-place penalty. Did you see Yuki Tsunoda's 50-place?
Oh, brother, 60.
60. It was 60. You're right.
Yeah, he started on turn 18.
No, he started in Hungary, bro.
Ocon officially signed with Haas. We were right about
Nothing surprising. We were talking about that
exactly.
forever. I don't want to go in depth about it again, but
That's
Ollie Behrman, I'm sorry for you. Also, I'm going to dog on you this week. You are abysmal this week. On with that. You know what? Maybe this is a good pairing.
This is going to be a 2021 Haas all over again? Was that when they had Mick
and Nikita?
Yeah. Ferrari, a.k.a. Carlos Sainz, revealed some more information about the bouncing issue that they've been facing. It's causing about a loss of 0.3 a lap, which is pretty dramatic.
Yep.
The corrections brought from Hungary gave Sainz and Leclerc more confidence under braking, and the bouncing starting point was triggered at higher speed ranges from 3.5 Gs to 4 Gs. So that's important because it's mainly happening in high-speed corners. That's what we're gathering from this as you slurp down your coffee cream.
I really respect you not switching the camera to me while I was doing that.
You're very welcome. The floor upgrade they brought last week was implemented without even going through the wind tunnel, but strictly from data over the last 2 races, which I think is a crazy aspect because you never know, dude. What if it just destroyed the total balance of the car? But they hope to have a more effective solution after the break in the Baku-Singapore package.
Something, yeah. A few more races of pain.
As a Ferrari fan,
I can live with it. It's fine.
Do it.
It's whatever. However, huge thing. We're gonna go back to Alpine. We probably should have just said it with the engine stuff, but
it happened at different times, so that's how I do it.
I know we love seeing an Alpine F1 team principal dodge that team and leave. And of course, this week it happened with Bruno Famin expecting to leave the team after the Belgian GP. I don't really feel like most people have confidence in that project anymore. Now it's just a running advertisement board for Ryan Reynolds. I have no idea who they're going to replace him with, though.
Jeremy Clarkson.
I'm actually okay with that. Or maybe pull somebody over.
Crazy take.
Dude, or pull a team principal over from WEC or Formula E.
I was just say Formula,
like
make it. Let's start bringing some new minds into these roles. Like we have Komatsu, who came from within the team itself.
Yeah.
But honestly, I would love to see,
I would love
Formula
to see Toyota Gazoo's team principal head an F1 team. They've been so successful for so long.
Valid points. What else we got? Lando admitted that he, quote, clouded over Oscar's first race win in F1 and has not felt too proud about that. Yeah, no.
Like I said, terrible attitude. However, I will say, I don't fully blame Lando in this whole clouding over Oscar's first win because I think McLaren is just as much to blame as Lando is because they botched a 1-2 finish. In the sense of you could not have had a more soiled 1-2 finish than you did. Lando didn't help by being a child for 20 laps and refusing to swap positions, but also you should have pitted Oscar first. Like that, it's a team effort to ruin the Piastri party. So, yeah. But I do respect Lando for coming out and saying that he was wrong. We knew he'd say it at some point, but
exactly.
Yeah.
FIA also said that before this weekend, that starting this weekend, that they are going to be monitoring the flexing wing that a lot of Mercedes, AMR, Williams has been using recently. And I don't know if it's going to be one of those things that we've talked about a lot of being, a KERS double diffuser situation where it's going to be extremely, or DRS even, like
Extremely
implemented, regulated
or
and
banned.
widely implemented, or just straight up banned because it's different.
They're killing innovation.
Genuinely. Like,
And this is literally, this is a manufacturing competition.
well said.
I mean, I know we have a giant sporting code, but
We do.
sometimes the stuff fits into the sporting code, but they just don't like it. Mm-hmm. And they say, okay,
Because
we're taking this out now.
They didn't think of it.
Yeah.
100%.
I love loopholes.
Everyone loves loopholes. Everyone does. Genuinely, just because they're fun to find.
I wonder, I wish there was a loophole for running an underweight car.
Great joke.
I'm sorry, George. You were phenomenal today.
What else we got? Next point was going to be Yuki, but we already talked about that. Oh, sad.
But actually, yeah, genuinely bad stuff.
Bad news that we got this week from F1 World.
We have a very real potential that the Dutch GP at Zandvoort is at risk of losing its spot on the calendar, according to the director of the event, Robert van Overdijk.
Yep. I was waiting for you. I was typing this out, and I did the same thing. I was like, "What's this guy's name?" Robert van O.
Okay, so his name is Robert van Overdijk. So yeah,
It's such a rough name. It's Overdijk.
like it has to just be what I said.
Yeah, I don't know the other way of pronouncing it.
I apologize. everybody. This is still a clean podcast.
It's still a clean podcast. 2025 could be the last time we see Zandvoort for a while.
And I mean, before 2021, we hadn't raced there in like 40 years. So, it had been so long since we raced at Zandvoort. Yeah, 2021. Okay, I think the 2021 calendar was near perfection. But yeah, it brought back a lot of classics. I mean, like Turkey as well. I mean, bring back Malaysia, and that thing was perfect. But to see it go so quickly would really suck. I mean, I don't think it's one of the best tracks for pure racing. And I will also talk about that with Spa this week. But it is one of the coolest flowy tracks that we have on the entire calendar. And it is a really nice spectacle to watch and to drive if you've ever done it on a sim or something like that. And the fans there are like some of the most passionate in the entire sport. So to rip that away would be kind of awful.
It's also like with Max being how dominant he is.
Well, and it's another purpose-built race circuit that we have the potential of losing.
For a street circuit to be potentially replace it.
Yeah, I'm not going to be a fan of that if that happens.
Formula One management is, quote, encouraging drivers to swear less as it could be offensive to some people when they are literally the ones in control of what is being aired on the feed. I just genuinely don't understand.
Oh, no. That was arguably the stupidest thing I've heard the entire week. Don't broadcast it.
Yeah.
F1 Kids exists for a reason.
The other thing, too, is like what Horner said. It's like, he was like, oh, if you give Premier League football players a microphone, they're probably not saying the nicest thing.
It's what Sebastian Vettel said.
It's what
like,
any sport. Any sport in the world.
Okay, I'm so sorry I slide tackled you. Let me give you a kiss on the cheek. Like, I'm sorry.
Have you heard NFL or NBA games?
No, I know. Okay, I've heard a bit of NFL mic'd
Oh,
up,
brother.
which is pretty funny.
No, not the mic'd up moments. The hot mic moments.
I have not heard the hot mic
where
moments.
just like a microphone around the stadium just picks up some random slur.
Oh, great. I need to go watch that.
It's bad, but it shows you how just competitive these guys are in the sport. And
yeah,
that's what is entertaining about it.
Speaking of competitive and just...
Kimi Antonelli.
Literally.
He knows everything.
It's really looking likely that he's going to be in that Mercedes next year.
We've talked about that enough.
But still, honestly, the amount that I've seen this week specifically was actually insane.
I've been saying this for 3 months.
Okay.
I said that it started with a PR stunt with them posting on Mercedes a bunch. Cool. They still do it.
Yeah.
Now, we don't have a driver still. Kimi Antonelli's doing good. People are really liking him.
I mean, he has really showed up in the second half of the season, though.
True. He's also really talented in the fact that he can remember every single lap time he's put up in his life.
Really? I did not know that.
Like, within thousandths of a second.
That's incredible.
Hundredths and thousandths of a second. So that's pretty cool. Last major thing I wanted to talk about before we move on is the power unit used by the teams so far.
Mm-hmm. Important.
So we have a chart pulled up. Shout out Autosport on Instagram for this chart. But we can tell that the Mercedes teams are comfortably not having to deal with engine wear compared to Ferrari. They're doing okay compared to Mercedes, I would say. Honda, oh boy, you have Max and Sergio both on their 5th ICE, both on their
Yuki
4th.
on his 5th ICE as well.
Yeah, you have Pierre Gasly on 5th of almost his entire engine, but those Renault engines we've already talked about. Alex Albon, he's already filling up his 4th, ICE, TC, MGU.
Yeah, I mean, I would honestly chalk a bit of that down to
some of that is also from the crashes.
Yeah,
and
that's what
I guess
say.
You could also say the same thing about Sergio, just because at least one of those happened because of Monaco. I want to say during that crash. So. And then we obviously know Danny Rick is on. He completely requested a new engine, so that changes everything for them. But then for almost every other Ferrari and Mercedes team, they're all on 3 or 2. Some of them, like Fernando's still on his first cooling.
He's still on his first control electronics and energy store.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So
As
is Russell,
George Russell and Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah.
There's a very real potential that most of the Mercedes-powered cars make it through the entire season without having to take a grid penalty.
Which is genuinely insane because, like you said, this is a competition for car building.
Well, and I've also thought that the power unit, like the allocated power unit elements, have been so skewed in recent years. Like, I know they increased it by 1 ICE this year, but I feel like for the longest time they give you so little to work with. Like, you have one bad crash and you're taking a grid penalty at Monza in 5 months from now. I don't know. It's just, looking at this, seeing how bad reliability wise the Honda power units and also the Renault power units look, it's actually shocking.
That Mercedes or that Aston Martin wants to switch, because that's what I'm looking at is like they want to deal with these issues on top of having a mid car at the moment.
I mean, but the Honda power unit is insanely good.
Yes. So that's the trade-off.
I feel like for them it's worth it. I mean, I would love to know how they would have done last year at the beginning of the season if they had a Honda power unit instead of a Mercedes power unit. Because they actually had a good car at the beginning of last year.
Very true. Very true. Some of the last news that we got this week coming from Red Bull and VCarb was the fact that Daniel and Liam are going to be doing a filming day at Imola next week. Whoever performs better is expected to replace Checo if he does continue to crap the bed. Like Oliver said to me during our texts of, these mofos hate you.
These MFs hate Yuki Tsunoda, bro. What did he do to deserve that?
But that is going to wrap it up for us on the F1 news side of things. We got only F1 and F2 discretion of racing this week. Otherwise, WEC, we have got a while. Rally, we got that starting in Finland this Thursday. MotoGP's next race is in a week from now, August 4th at Silverstone. And the next Formula Drift event is at Seattle, August 9th and 10th. And we got a lot to learn before that event over here. So, starting off, let's do F2 stuff just because that gives us a break from F1 for a second.
I was going to say, Formula 2 was kind of crazy this week. It's one of my first weeks in which I got to watch almost the entirety of Formula 2 live, and the weather in Belgium helped me out with that a lot. But in qualifying, Paul Aron took a hugely important pole position and 2 points around Spa with a time of 156.959 ahead of P3 in the championship, Gabriel Bortoleto, who was 0.168 seconds back, and then Isaac Hadjar was in P3, 0.2 seconds back. So the top three in the championship qualify for the top three in the race. However, it was very interesting while I was watching qualifying. Isaac crossed the line on his final lap and then just went off on the radio, just cussing and all that kind of stuff. Apparently there was an issue with his safety mode button, which is a button in the Formula 2 car that for like, I guess, like think of a safety car coming out or something like that, where you can press this button and it limits the power output to the car. And apparently he accidentally pressed that button on that flying lap, which would have denied Paul Aron pole position. But yeah, it completely screwed his last lap time over and kind of, I don't want to say gifted Paul Aron the, what's it called? The pole position, because he was convincingly better than Hadjar, at least in qualifying trim. But yeah, so finally, it was looking like some good luck for Paul. You had Zach O'Sullivan took what would be, you'll find out soon, a very crucial P10 with Dennis Hauger in P9 setting the front row for the next day's sprint race. So we go into Saturday. The sprint race is usually 2 hours before Formula 1 qualifying. So I think for that, it would have been like 6 a.m. here. So I knew I was going to miss it. I get up to watch F1 qualifying. It was great. Talk about it soon. But I went on my phone while I was watching and saw that the sprint race was delayed. Apparently there was terrible rain weather pre-qualifying for F1, so it wasn't safe for them to race. So they waited until after Formula 1 qualifying to do the sprint race. So we finished F1 qualifying, get into the sprint race. Like F1 qualifying was semi-wet. It was like a wet to dry track. And then right when F1 qualifying finished, it started to rain again. So we start this race. We have Zach O'Sullivan. It was a standing start. We have Zach O'Sullivan taking the lead with Dennis Hauger and then Richard Vachor in P3. We do a couple laps, and then we have one retirement, and they call out a safety car, and then the safety car goes around. It's an 18-lap race, by the way. The safety car goes around for 4 laps, and then they red flag the race on lap 7 and bring all the cars back into the pit lane. And I was getting massive PTSD from 2021 Belgium, and it's exactly what happened. So after sitting in the pit lane for about 20 minutes, they said that the race would not be resumed due to poor weather conditions. So what happened was they used the second section of points for how long the race had been going on for. So they completed more than 25%, but less than 50% of the race distance. So that was on the F2 scale for the sprint race, 5 points for the winner, down to 1 point for 5th place. So Zach O'Sullivan got gifted the win and essentially no points for it. And then you had Dennis Hauger in P2 and Richard Vachor in P3. It was really sucky because you had both of the Premas of Antonelli and Behrman looking insanely good before the safety car came out on lap 4. I think Ollie Behrman had made up 6 positions on the first lap. Kimi Antonelli had made up a couple, and they were really charging through the field, and O'Sullivan was going to have to defend for his life to keep them back. So to have that race essentially canceled was kind of a sour taste. But the feature race the next day kind of came to save us. So we get into Sunday. This is where I said I wanted to dog on Ollie Behrman because he just pulled a stupid maneuver at the beginning of this race. So he's starting down in the back half of the grid. I think he qualified like P18 for the race. Gets a decent start, passing a couple cars, and then you have him coming up against Zane Maloney, and then you have Pepe Marti in like P20 getting one of the craziest starts I've ever seen. And he's going around the outside of Zane Maloney, and Ollie Behrman just comes across the road. I just slapped the mic. Sorry. I was so pissed when I saw this. But he comes across the road, and like cuts off Zane Maloney, clips his front right tire, and then just spears into Pepe Marty and takes them both into the wall and crashes them out. Marty was obviously furious on the microphone. Ollie's like, yeah, I'm okay. And Marty's just like, I just had the best start of my life, and it just gets ruined by this. And that is a sentiment I feel all the time when I do sim racing. But aside from that, it was just a phenomenal race of like no crazy strategies. Most people were on the same strategy, but it was just seeing P1, P2, and P3 in the championship fighting it out every single lap, trading positions on the Kemmel Straight going into Lake Home, until, you know, like on the last lap. This week was so crazy for racing. Isaac Hadjar was convincingly the fastest driver on track today, but Paul Aaron was like really giving it his all. And on the final lap of the race, the running order was Hadjar in P1, Bortoletto in P2, and Aaron in P3. And we're going down the Kemmel Straight, and all of a sudden, the camera just cuts to Paul Aaron, stopped, and he had a mechanical failure on the last lap of the race that dropped him off the podium, out of the points, and in my opinion, potentially out of the championship race as a whole. It was really, really disappointing. So you had Isaac Hadjar finishing P1, Bortoletto finishing P2 at the fastest lap, and you had Aaron just taking his 2 points for pole position. But it's just another heartbreak for Paul Aaron. Bortoletto now passes him in the championship by 5 points, and he trails Isaac Hadjar by 36. So you have Hadjar on 165, Bortoletto on 129, and now Paul Aaron on 124. Zane Maloney might also come to pass Paul Aaron as well, as he's sitting on 111 points in P4. But I think just reliability and unluckiness with Paul Aaron is really destroying his championship charge. Like, this kid had the realistic possibility of, you know, winning the championship without winning a single race. And it's really all come undone in the past few races. And I truly feel bad for the kid because I think he's so talented. But yeah, I still think it was a decent weekend for F2. But 2021 Belgium PTSD, mechanical failure while fighting for the championship, kind of disappointing. But yeah, that's F2 this week. Thanks for listening.
Yes, sir. that was F2. I didn't catch
F2.
any of it.
Oh, I watched it all, baby.
I watched none of it.
I was so pissed. I was so pissed.
I almost watched the F3 feature race.
F3 feature race was great.
Well, I was up at 4 a.m. last night, so I was just like,
I just watched the highlights.
I was like, maybe I should tune in for it, but decided against it and tried to get some sleep.
Yeah, 30 car field, bro. There's always some crazy stuff going on.
Oh God, yeah. Let's go over some qualifying action. We had wet qualifying this week,
which was really nice to see. You know, qualifying in the wet is always the great equalizer between cars, but it was dry enough that you kind of knew Max Verstappen was kind of just come through and take it. But I wouldn't say it was like super exciting, but you know, the implementation of Max's 10-place grid penalty meant the battle for pole was like 100% open. And it did come to light immediately as Verstappen was like over half a second faster than the rest of the field in every segment of qualifying, bar Q1 with Oscar Piastri taking P1. But both Haas cars out in Q1 was my big shock for qualifying one, because I feel like they've been on decent form as of recent. And then Q2 was really interesting for me. I was sitting on the phone with my buddy Regan, me and Raven's buddy Regan, and we were watching qualifying. We're just waiting to see if Sergio was going to get knocked out because he was like so far on the cusp. And he barely makes it into Q3 by 0.003 of a second over Alex Albon. But massive props to Alonso and especially Esteban for making it into the final 10. I think they both had really good qualifying sessions, and Fernando had a really strong weekend, actually. But once we got into Q3, the McLaren seemed to be nowhere in the final portion of qualifying, and Sergio Perez seemed to have somehow finally remembered how to qualify in the final segment, as he took provisional pole minus Verstappen, until out of nowhere, Charles Leclerc just pops up out of nowhere. You know, sometimes you got to pop out. But he stole the celebrations for Ferrari. They're not like us. Okay. Beating Perez to the P1 award by 1/100th of a second. Now we all stop laughing. Okay, we all knew that
The way you seamlessly threw it in there. Jesus, man.
we all knew, Charles Leclerc, 24 pole positions before yesterday, 6 race wins. We knew he was not winning from pole position. I'll let you start off the race. I know you caught the beginning.
Yeah.
I mean, I did too, but I don't want to just steal this.
Starting with the opening lap, after a wonderful start by most of the grid, we had Lewis on the inside of Checo winning the second place spot, leaving the McLarens behind as side by side, where Lando gets pushed off into the gravel for a split second, which is one of the only bad moments we really saw over the entire day. I mean, there's a few cut corners, but
I will say that moment in turn 1, though, completely ruined his race.
yeah, and he knew it. He said it afterwards that was the key factor that stopped him, and genuinely, yeah, it was. He was such a far back just because he lost all his momentum through that corner.
Yeah, I think it was either 3 or 4 positions that he lost with that short trip on the gravel.
George sneaks into 4th right after this, which was pretty apparent that he was pretty quick there. Not the quickest Mercedes on the weekend, though.
And it also became extremely apparent that not only Sergio Perez, which we all knew was going to have no pace, but the Red Bull as a whole, even under Max Verstappen, was seriously struggling to progress through the field. Max had no difficulty getting past, Esteban and Fernando, but when it came to going against the actual top cars, he was really struggling to make progress. It was a 2-stop strategy for all 7 out of the 8 front-running cars. And I say 7 because about halfway through the race after his first pit stop, 15 laps in, George is like, I think I can make this work on a 1-stop, and I think this will work. And now I don't think George Russell thought he was going to win the race from that strategy call, because realistically he was fighting for the podium spot, for the P3 spot. You had everybody trading positions. You had Ferraris being moving chicanes. And it became very apparent as the race kept going on that George was nursing these tires so well. And it came out to this grandstand finish where you had the charge from Oscar Piastri and Lewis Hamilton, to try and come up and take the race win from George. And I think if you gave them one more lap, Lewis probably would have passed George on track, but I think it was one of the best drives and strategy calls I've seen in F1 in a long time, but it wasn't to be. For the first time in decades, we had a driver disqualified from the race win as George Russell's car was 1.5 kilograms underweight. Now, that is insane, just given the fact that 1.5 kilograms accounts for nearly 0.05 of a second a lap. So to think about it like that,
he was cheating.
I mean, no, literally. It's like across a whole race distance at Belgium, that's like a full second that he saved. And if he was a second further back, Lewis would have won the race by 0.5 of a second. So it was a rightful disqualification. I feel really bad for the dude because it's not his fault. He drove so well. But it promoted Lewis Hamilton to the race win. Mercedes losing a 1-2. Promoted Oscar Piastri to P2. It promoted my boy, Charles Leclerc, onto the podium, which is honestly all I care about. The dude took pole and he finished on the podium. I'm happy.
It's a win for the Ferrari this week.
Absolutely.
Ending it off, we have some changes within the championship. We have Max extending his lead over Lando and the other drivers by 3 points with a lead of 78. McLaren once again closing the gap on their Red Bull rivals in the Constructors' Cup. They took 28 points off. They took 28 points this weekend while Red Bull scraped a 19. McLaren take 9 points off the board, closing the gap to now 42 points in that Constructors' Championship. Now, Oliver, are you ready? Because it's been a while since we have done this.
I'm ready.
Do you want to start it off?
Yes, sir.
All right. Give me 3 seconds to find the music.
1, 2, 3. Of course it's going to be top 5 or not 5, guys. Top 5 or not 5?
Top 5 or not 5?
All right, we're going to go to the top 5 first. I'd say top tier racing, 4 teams competing for the win every week. You can't complain.
Alonso touching points for the first time in God knows how long.
Stellar drive from the dude. Pure strategy from the teams as well. Some good, some bad, but a phenomenal watch.
Felt like we're actually watching F1 racing again. We had Russell's strategy.
And Daniel Ricciardo scoring a singular point and looking good when he needs to.
Could get that V-carb.
Into the not 5. Joe not making it even a quarter of the race.
This was pretty
laps.
painful. This was painful. But George Russell winning and then getting DQ'd.
Yeah, we were ready for that. Perez finishing 8th, starting on the front row, finishing 8th behind Max, who still somehow gained points against his rivals in the championship standings. Now, I say Spa as well because I think this track is really coming out for being bad for overtaking. It's tough.
It's hard. You only can do it on Rouge to look pretty, like Kimi did this weekend.
Yes, sir.
Norris not being able to have a clean start to save his life is our last point in the top 5 and not 5.
We've gone from Lando no wins to Lando throw wins.
The evolution no one expected.
Yeah, I'm not happy about it.
And we still got about 2 seconds to spare on the music, so that's a win from us.
We got it back, guys. I missed it.
It was nice to do.
Yeah, we had a little soft breakup from top 5 or not 5. But
It's hard
we're
to
back.
do when you have to be up every single day, every single week at 8 a.m. to watch these races and then record a few hours later. So
Yeah.
when we have these triple headers, it is going to be pretty hard. Moving forward, we can also do top 5 and not 5 of the triple header weekend. Like we can make these a little more entertaining, but also make them not as sporadic in the thing. But coming next week, we are taking
2 weeks off.
we're taking 2 weeks off. We are recording some content for you guys though, so don't worry about that. We are doing an interview. I will announce who pretty soon, but it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be really, really cool to connect with him and talk about just his views on F1, but also what it's like being an F1 streamer. So
We will come back a week before the end of the summer break. We're going to do our big collection of news over the summer break. I want to do our mid-season driver ratings as well. I think Raven and I can draft something up, go head-to-head with each other, see how we feel about everybody on the grid.
we also have to do Destructors Championship because,
Of course.
oh boy, is there some updates.
It'll be nice to take a little bit of time off, too.
Yes, gonna hang out with some family, gonna sleep in one day. That's gonna be nice.
Sleeping on a Sunday. I love it.
But that is going to be wrapping it up from us here on the gravel. We got another show out on the network for you guys. Listen for commands right now. Go check that out. Otherwise, we have Good Morning Hockey coming back in about less than 2 months now. So that is
Beautiful,
going to be
baby.
exciting. Otherwise, from us here in Chicago at the studio, Raven and Oliver are signing out for you guys today.
Yes, sir.
Would you like to do your thing?
Would I like to? Of course I would. Subscribe right here on the left side of my head, as it always is. Last week's video over here on the right side of my head. As always, appreciate you guys. I love doing what we do here at Alethio with my boy Raven.
Oh, I mistimed that music terribly. Well, it's going to start again.
Who cares? Yeah, anyways, as I was saying, I appreciate you guys coming out every single week. You guys make what we do fun. I know people, coming in, listening every single week makes it worth it for me. So, appreciate you guys.
Thank you
Thanks,
guys.
Enjoy the week. Enjoy the summer break.
We will be back next time.
Peace out.